All praise to the Most High, Ahia, and to his son, Yahya, Messiah, Yadah Hayah. This is Brother Holly here with the first Spirit of Truth broadcast here on the Ahia House channel, as well as the House of Ahia channel on this set-apart Sabbath day. First and foremost, as always, let us give all glory, praise, and honor to the great I am, he who is, was, and is to come, the Almighty One, Yadah Hayah, and to his son, Yahya Messiah, who gave himself for us that we might have life, and that life is in him, Yadah Hayah. Now, in this first broadcast, we're going to go over something that we go over periodically here at Ahai's House and House of Ahai. And I do this under the prompting of the Spirit of Ahai when he stirs me in this way. For it seems to me, and it seems befitting to me, that the more as I hear people still struggling with what the works of the law are, that phrase is found in the book of Romans, and the deeds of the law phrase is found in the book of Galatians. And we're finding that in both places it says that no flesh is justified by the deeds or the works of the law. That we within the Hebraic faith have allowed primarily the Constantine heathen Christians to define what that means. Not only what it means to them, but what it means to us. Now, what it means to them is that no keeping of any law of whatsoever, that not stealing won't justify you, that not killing won't justify you, that if you try to be righteous in accordance with the moral law, or if you keep the ceremonial law to include the Sabbath, that you're not depending on grace. But it's explicit what that means from the scriptures, and we're going to show that explicitivity to you today. It's not a blanket statement that the Apostle Saul, and whom we all trust, who the world ignorantly calls Paul, was making. No, he was discussing case law, and he was discussing it from the vantage point of a new sacrifice for sin forever being provided through the body of Messiah. And we're going to read about that in Hebrews chapter 10 in a moment. But we're going to go back into the book of Leviticus. We're going to show what the sacrifice for sin was. It was always the same thing. And we're going to show where it was, who it was applicable to. It was the children of YASHARAHLA. And it was not just applicable to the children of YASHARAHLA or the 12 tribes of Jacob in the land, or when you had a temple. No, these things were being done while we were still wandering in the wilderness, long before we crossed Jordan. And I'll show that to you as well from the scriptures. And once I show you that these works or these deeds according to the law for sin, we're going to tie that together from Hebrews chapter 10 with the sacrifices that were made for sin according to the law, and the one sacrifice for sin forever, which was according to the will of Ahia himself. All praises. We'll be reading from my falling apart, Learn Paleo Hebrew Torah, Lashawan Kodash, Yeshaya, Ahia Bible Scriptures version. And I say it's falling apart because, children, it is. It is completely, it's being held together. It's just being held together by faith at this point. Nothing's keeping these pages from falling out. Like I said in previous broadcasts, I have backup copies, and they go to cyber attacks. And they go to cyber attacks. They always start. I have backup copies of not only this version but others, but with only this version is the most heavily precept of them all. I guess number 2 would be my copy of the Sefer, which I read from occasion, and I used to read from it a lot before I came across this resource. And for all the benefits of this resource, it is still, I'm still stirred in my spirit, children. I haven't forgot what Ahia has told me to do. I'm just, I keep saying it because it keeps being true. I am wrapping things up at present here, and if Ahia wills me to be so that I live, and his son Terry, once things are wrapped up here and I'm long gone from my current billet, from my current residence, from my current location, when I'm in a different place in a different time, with nothing on my docket except doing the work of Ahia full time, which is coming up. I'm within a year now, children, and I'm so excited I could cry. But once I'm in that place at that time, if Ahia wills it to be so, and I live, and his son Terry, I will begin the arduous task of putting pen to paper, for lack of a better term, and transcribing or scribing the word of Ahia to the 12 tribes scattered precept version. And the Most High has been preparing me for this undertaking. I can't open a book anymore. I opened the book of Ezra the other day, and precepts was just dropping. Most High was just dropping precepts from the Apocryphal books, from the Old Testament, from the New Testament. He was just dropping precepts on me. Every line was just precepts upon precept. Oh, praises. That's the way we learn, children. That's the way he deals with us. That's the way he teaches us. And I got a word for all the trolls out there. If you're a troll, again, welcome, troll. However, these broadcasts are not for you. If you are not a blood and bone descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if the law has not been written on your heart, if you are not, if the new covenant, which is adjourned to the house of YASHARAHLA and the house of Yahayada or Judah, is not to you, if you're outside of those people groups, then you have no lot or stake in this matter. You're only here trolling, but enjoy the rebukes that you get, troll. Because occasionally I will mention what the scriptures say about your ultimate destruction. Case in point, I will make a full end to the nation, to the Gentiles, but I will not make a full end of you, child of Jacob. He said he's going to correct us by measure. They're getting destroyed. 100%. There is no salvation for them. So if you got your favorite heathen out there, child of Jacob, you can't take them into the kingdom. For no uncircumcised person of heart or flesh shall have any place in the kingdom. Oh, praises. Turn me to the book of Leviticus. And let's start reading at Leviticus chapter 5, verse 15. If a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the quadacia things of Ahia, then he shall bring for his trespass unto Ahia a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with an estimation by shekels of silver after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. Will you highlight? This is dealing with the sin of ignorance. We're going to get to willful disobedience here in a moment. Leviticus chapter 5, verse 15 again. If a soul commit a trespass and sin through ignorance in the quadacia things of Ahia, then he shall bring for his trespass unto Ahia a ram without blemish out of the flocks, with thy estimation by shekels of silver after the shekel of the sanctuary, for a trespass offering. We highlight verse 16. And he shall make amends for the harm that he hath done in the quadacia thing, of the thing that's been set apart, and shall add the fifth part thereunto, and give it unto the priest. And the priest shall make an atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. When you highlight, you had to bring your trespass offering, which was a ram, out of your flocks, without blemish. And I remember I told you earlier when we first started this that I was going to bring out and point out that the trespass and sin offering was always the same thing. A ram out of your flocks without blemish. Always the same thing according to Leviticus, according to the law. That's important. Because there was a lamb offered. Out of the flock of humanity, out of the flock of YASHARAHLA, did the Messiah come. For it is evident that he was of Judah. It is evident that he is the lamb without spot or blemish. It is evident that he was given as a sacrifice once and for all. We're going to read it in a moment. Just like this animal ram was given, so did the Father offer his own Son as a lamb without spot and blemish for us. All of us are like sheep gone astray. We've all sinned. So all the sinners of YASHARAHLA needed one sacrifice forever. Oh, praises. Ain't enough lambs to kill. And the Most High ain't satisfied them sacrifices anyway. So he put forth a sacrifice he would be satisfied with. We're going to read it. Sit a while. Leviticus 5:16 again. And he shall make amends for the harm that he has done in the Kodashia thing, and shall add the 5th part thereto, and give it unto the priest, and the priest shall make an atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering, and it shall be forgiven him. Verse 17, and if a soul sin and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of Ahiah, though he willed it not, yet he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity with your highlight. Now, we dealt with the sin of ignorance. You didn't know what you were doing. You were dealing with something holy and you shouldn't have been dealing with it at all. You just ignorant. Now, we're dealing with sins that you tried your best not to sin. You like, I didn't want to do this, but I did it anyway. Man, you like the Apostle Saul in Romans 7. That which I will to do, I can't do. My spirit is willing, my flesh is weak. You didn't will to do this, you did it anyway. You didn't will to lust after your neighbor's wife, but you did it anyway. You didn't will to steal, but you did it anyway. You did it anyway. The Most High got it. And he said you broke a commandment. You went against the commandments of Ahiah. I'll read it again. Leviticus 5:17. And if a soul sin and commit any of these things which are forbidden to be done by the commandments of Ahiah, though he wills it not, yet he is guilty and shall bear his iniquity. What did he do? Verse 18. And he shall bring a ram without blemish out of the flock, with the estimation for a trespass offering unto the priest. And the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his ignorance wherein he erred, and willed it not, and it shall be forgiven him when you highlight. You say, Brother Holly, if it's that easy, well, why don't we just can do it? Now, the Kantian Christians would tell you, inappropriately, we're going to read it in a minute, that you need a temple for all this. That's why they need to rebuild the temple so that YASHARAHLA can start the animal sacrifice all over again. But I'm going to show you in a minute from the book of Leviticus, from the scripture, that this wasn't being done when the temple was up. Oh no, they were doing this in the wilderness. We're going to read it in a minute. Leviticus 5:19. It is a trespass offering. He hath certainly trespassed against Ahiah. If you will it, if you're ignorant, or if you will it not, you still broke the commandments. You trespass. So you bring the trespass offering with some shekels. We read it, right? You got to bring the temple sacrifice, the amount of money you're supposed to put in the temple coffers. You bring that with your sin offering. You go broke. You go broke if you just habitually said it. You go broke because you always have to get a ram. You always have to get them shekels up. But we have a better covenant on better promises. All praises. Now let's flip over, if you will. Leviticus chapter 7. Let's start reading at verse 37. Leviticus 7 and 37. This is the Torah law of the burnt offering, of the meat offering, and of the sin offering, and of the trespass offering, and of the consecrations, and of the sacrifice of the peace offering. So everything from Leviticus chapter 1 verse 1 all the way here to the end of chapter 7 covers all the law of sacrifices. This is a summation of what we've been reading from. The first 7 chapters in their totality of Leviticus are all about the sacrifices of the Torah law. I'll read it again. Leviticus chapter 7 verse 37. This is the Torah law of the burnt offering, of the meat offering, and of the sin offering, and of the trespass offering, and of the consecrations, and of the sacrifices of the peace offering. Verse 38, which Ahiah commanded Moshe or Moses in Mount Sinai in the day that he commanded the children of YASHARAHLA to offer their oblations unto Ahiah in the wilderness of Sinai. Remember I told you I was going to show from the scriptures that these sacrifices didn't require no temple. They required a Levitical priest, but they didn't require a temple. They required an altar, but they didn't require a temple. So if you sinned, you were told what to do. What'd you do? Go find you a male goat out of your flocks without blemish, and get your shekels up and go to the priest, and he'll do the offering for your sin, and it'll be forgiven you. Well, Brother Holly, that sounds like all we need to do is find some Levitical priest and no. This is the work of the law, or the task of the law for sin, given to the children of YASHARAHLA through Moshe or Moses, who the world even calls Moses, by Ahiah while in the wilderness. And they continued this practice once the temple was established. And the first 7 chapters of Leviticus are all concerning how to do the sacrifices or the works of the law. Let's now read what the works of the law could not do and how it couldn't help you, and what is now done that can help you. Let's turn over to Romans. Book of Romans chapter 3. They're always quoting this, the Constantine Christians. And we're going to look at Galatians chapter 2 as well. But now that we understand that the works of the law concerning sin was a sacrifice in accordance with the law, given by Ahiah through Moshe to the children of YASHARAHLA in the wilderness, no temple needed to do these sacrifices. All you needed was an altar and a Levi and your sin, and the proper sacrifice for the sin. That's all you needed, and some shekels. I like that part. That always tickles me. What's that? Cough it up, man. Yeah, cough it up. Romans chapter 3. We'll just go to verse 19. We'll just cut right to the chase. I mean, we could read all about what advantage has the Yahudim. Much verily unto us was committed the oracles or the words of Ahiah. Yeah, we're the only nation that was given his word. We're the only nation that was given a covenant. We're the only nation that was given a Messiah. Romans chapter 9, verses 1 through 5, or 1 through 6, I'm sorry, outlines we're the only nation given covenants, promises, laws. So it's all for us. But suffice it to say, with that understanding as well, we're going to read what all those things that were done for us in accordance to sacrifice under the law, but it could not do. And it's going to tie it together for you that these are sacrifices the Apostle Saul is talking about here in Romans and in Galatians when we read the book of Hebrews, which a lot of people, myself being one of them, believe that the Apostle Saul, who the world ignorantly calls Paul, wrote as well. And of all the writings in the New Testament of his, you can't deny, not being honest, you can't deny that the book of Hebrews wasn't written to no so-called Gentiles. Period, point blank, full stop. Not written to other people, to the nations. It was written to the Hebrews. We got an old book written to us. And the epistle of James or Jacob, that's to the 12 tribes scattered. You can't claim that one either. I digress. Let's go. Romans chapter 3, verse 19. It says, now we know that what things soever the Torah law says, it says to them who are under the Torah law. Will you highlight? Underline that, would you? We know that whatsoever things Torah law says, it says to those who are under the Torah law. And the things that were said to a group of people under Torah was said to the children of YASHARAHLA in the wilderness of Sinai, especially concerning the law of sacrifice, of the first 7 chapters of the book of Leviticus. That wasn't written to everybody. And we know the law wasn't given to everybody. Romans chapter 9, verses 1 through 6. And the cyber attacks begun. I read Romans 3:19 again. Now we know that what things soever the Torah law says, it says to them who are under the Torah law, that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. Okay, trolls, here you go. All the world. Ooh. We've proven here at Highest House and House for High that the whole world was represented in the long garment and by the ephod on the priest, the breastplate of the priest, which had the 12 stones engraved. That's Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 15, verse 23. Chapter 14, I'm sorry, verse 23. That the whole world is represented in the long garment and on the breastplate, the ephod that the priest wore on his chest, with the 12 stones engraved, a stone for each one of the 12 sons of Jacob. We know and understand Isaiah 45:17, that YASHARAHLA shall be saved in a high with an everlasting salvation. We will not be confused. We won't be confounded. World without end. So in light of those verses, this verse is saying the same thing. That all of that world, the world of us, the world of YASHARAHLA, is all guilty. We were the ones given the law. We were the ones given the sacrifices. We were the ones that are held accountable to it. And we're the ones found guilty by it. I'll read it again. Now we know that whatsoever the Torah law says, it says to them who are under Torah law, that every mouth may be stopped and all the world may become guilty before God. Therefore by the deeds of the Torah law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the Torah law is the knowledge of sin. Yeah, like. Now we're going to read how that works in a moment in Hebrews chapter 10. But remember that. The 2 points. By the deeds of the Torah law, no flesh is justified, and the Torah law, or the works of the Torah law, the deeds of the Torah law, it's an acknowledgement or knowledge of sin. It reminds you of your sin. That's all it does. Is remind you of your need for a sacrifice. It tells you what sacrifice to do based on your particular sin. It reminds you that you need this to happen because you sinned. If you sin ignorantly, if you don't want to sin and you do it anyway, you still need these sacrifices. You're still guilty. It says so in Leviticus 5. You're still guilty. You're bearing your iniquity. Isn't that what Romans chapter 3 just said? That you're guilty? Leviticus 5 says you're guilty. Even if you're ignorant, even if you didn't want to do it, you're guilty. So bring the sacrifice, guilty soul. But that sacrifice of the work of the law, which was the sacrifice of the law, couldn't justify you before the Most High. We're going to find out why in a moment. Let's read it again. Therefore, by the deeds of the Torah law, there shall no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the Torah law is the knowledge of sin. But now, verse 21, but now the righteousness of Ahai without the Torah law is manifest, being witnessed by the Torah law and the prophets, even the righteousness of Ahai, which is by faith of Yahshua Messiah unto all and upon all them that believe. There is no difference. For all have sinned and come short. For all of you are guilty. For all of you need a sacrifice. And for all have sinned and come short of the glory. Yet it said in verse 19, everybody guilty. It says down here in verse 23, everybody sinned. It said in Torah in Leviticus chapter 5 that if you were ignorant or you didn't want to do it, you're still guilty. And you got to bear that iniquity. So this ain't some new revelation. Oh no, we understood this. From the time we were in the wilderness, we understood we guilty. We understood we need a sacrifice. But what we did not understand while we were in the wilderness, while we were in the land, when we got kicked out the land, before the advent of the Messiah, what we didn't understand is why we still feel guilty after doing these sacrifices which the law required. Why do we still feel guilty after obeying and doing the works that the law required us to do? Why do we still feel guilty? We're going to read it in Hebrews chapter 10 in a moment. I'll read it again. For all have sinned and come short of the glory of Ahai, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Messiah Yahshua. All praises. That's where it's found. That's where the removal of your guilt is found. How? How did Messiah do that for you? We're going to read it. We got to stop in Galatians. We got to stop in Galatians first. I told you we would. I ain't ducking none of you wannabes, wannabe Constantine Christians, especially if you're some other nation. I ain't ducking you. I know you don't know what you're talking about. I got on good report. If you don't keep Torah, you don't know what you're talking about. You designed to be a teacher of the law, not knowing what you're talking about. The Apostle Saul called you out. I don't have to. He did. So all you wannabes out there, listen up. Stick around. Galatians chapter 2, verse 16, knowing, here's something else we know, that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Yahshua Messiah. Even we have believed in Yahshua Messiah, that we might be justified by the faith of Messiah, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. It's the same thing he said over here in Romans chapter 3, is it not? But he made a point over here in Romans chapter 3 he didn't make in Galatians chapter 2. That by the works of the law is the knowledge of sin. That's important to remember. That's why I read it from Romans chapter 3. That's why I went back here to Romans chapter 3 to remind you of that one little point. It's the knowledge of sin. The works of the law creates the knowledge of sin, and we're going to find out what the works of the law are that can't justify. Just a moment. Gotta lay the groundwork first. You just gotta. And I'm not trying to evangelize the Constantine Christian heathens from the other nations. We're told not to give that which is holy, which is the commandments, not to give that which is holy, which is the covenant, not to give that which is holy, which are promises, not to give that which is holy unto dogs. And the Messiah himself let us know who the dogs are. He called a Syrophoenician woman from another nation a dog. So if you're from the other nations, and it tells us in the book, in 1 Baruch, chapter 4, verse 3, not to give that which is precious unto us unto another of a strange nation. These precious promises, these precious commandments, these precious covenants are not for you, dog. Not for you, person of a strange nation. I ain't trying to reach you. I'm told not to give it to you. I would be disobeying the Messiah if I tried to evangelize you. So you can troll all your life. You can hang out every Sabbath. You can come here and hang out as long as the higher wills it to be so. This will never be for you. I'm talking to the lost sheep of the house of YASHARAHLA right now. I'm talking to my fellow Hebrew man and woman. I'm talking to my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are YASHARAHLA, to who pertain the commandments, who pertain the law, to who pertains the covenants, who pertains the promises, to who pertains the fathers, to who pertains the Messiah. I'm talking to you. Oh, praises. Listen up. Knowing that a man is not justified, Galatians chapter 2, verse 16, we're going to keep reading. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by the faith of Yahweh Messiah. Even we, which have believed in Yahweh Messiah, that we might be justified by the faith of Messiah, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. It sounds like circular reasoning, but it's not. Listen up. But if, while we seek to be justified by Messiah, we ourselves also are found sinners. See, just because you're seeking to be justified without the works or the sacrifice of the law, don't mean you don't need a sacrifice. If you're still a sinner, what is it? Is therefore Messiah the minister of sin? Is therefore Messiah the minister of breaking the Most High's laws, statutes, commandments, judgment, ordinances, precepts? I forbid. Galatians 2:18. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor. Why would the Constantine Christian heathens ever read that verse? You ask them, are you a sinner? I'm a sinner. Saved by grace. It says right here, if you build again after you destroy, you're making yourself a sinner. And you ask them, is Messiah the minister of sin? If you've been born again, if you've been saved, and you're in Messiah, and you still walking in sin, these two things are not, is he the minister of that sin you in? Please explain, heathen. Explain. They can't. Because it's not for them. Their sin remain. They just like Esau, man. They can cry about it, beg about it, whatever. Their sin remain. They're not going to be given repentance, though they seek it with tears. Preach. Let's keep going. Galatians chapter 2, verse 18. For if I build again the things which I destroyed, I make myself a transgressor, for I through the law am dead to the law, that I might live unto a high. I am crucified with Messiah. Nevertheless I live, not I, but Messiah lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for. I do not frustrate the grace of Allah. For if righteousness is come by the law, the Messiah is dead in vain. What did Messiah die for? He died for our sins according to the scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 1 through 4. He was buried, and on the third day he rose again, according to the scriptures. That is the good news, children. That good news is only for you, child of Jacob. It's only for you who are under the law. It's only for you who are under grace now. It's only for you. It's not for these heathens. Oh, they read it. They wish it was for them. But it's not. All right. Let's hit the conclusion of the matter. Hebrews chapter 10. And as I said earlier, I'm reading from this version. I'll read it as it is rendered in this version. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. For the Levitical law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which they offer year by year continually, make the comers down to perfect. Will you highlight? Now we see that it was the sacrifices that were commanded in the Levitical law, which are the works of the law. For these sacrifices could never take away sin. Were there sacrifices commanded in the Levitical law? For saying we read some of them. Of course there were sacrifices called. The whole first 7 chapters of the book of Leviticus is all about the law of the sacrifice. Of all the sacrifices. The trespass sacrifice, peace offering, all of them. All the sacrifices and offerings. I'll read it again. For the Levitical law, having a shadow of good things to come. This is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1. Having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with those sacrifices which are offered year by year continually, make the comers down to perfect. You can never be made perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered? How so? How? Because that the worshipers, once purged, should have had no more consciousness of sins. Will you highlight? What did we say the works of the law were? In Romans chapter 3? The knowledge of sin. For by the deeds of the law is the knowledge of sin. By the sacrifices of the law. Because if the sacrifices called for by the Levitical law, right here in Romans 10, in Hebrews chapter 10, if those sacrifices could have made you perfect, if those sacrifices could have purged you of your sin, then you wouldn't have had no knowledge of your sin. But those sacrifices couldn't take away your sin. Only reminded you of your sin. For by the works of the law is the knowledge or the acknowledgement of sin. You didn't get no reprieve mentally from your sin. We're going to read it. It says right here. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 2 again. For then would they not have ceased to be offered, because that the worshipers, once purged, should have had, no more conscious of sins. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. You ain't never let off the hook, because they couldn't make you perfect. You were always reminded. You were always kept in knowledge of your sin by just the doing of the sacrifices for them. Wow. Those are the works of the law that create the knowledge of sin. The sacrifices called for by the law. Keep reading. Hebrews 10:3 again. But in those sacrifices there is a remembrance again made of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. What was being shed? I remember we went over from Leviticus that when you commit a sin or a trespass, you had to go get a goat. Remember that? You had to get a he goat from out your flock and some shekels. Take the goat and sacrifice him. Take him to the priest, and the priest will sacrifice, and you'll be forgiven. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 4. For it is not possible. It's impossible. If something is not possible, it's impossible. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and of goats should take away sins. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he saith, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared me. In burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin, thou hast no pleasure with your highlight. This is why you won't justify you in the eyes of a higher. He don't have no pleasure in those sacrifices for sin. He took pleasure in only one sacrifice for sin at any point in time. Even when he commanded the children of YASHARAHLA to do it, it was a type and a shadow to what was forthcoming. Even when he told them to do it, it was a type and foreshadow of what was coming. That his own son would come in the likeness of sinful flesh and for sin and condemn sin in the flesh. Praises. Romans chapter 8, verses 1 through 4. Let's keep reading. I'll read verse 5 again, Hebrews 10:5. Wherefore, when he cometh into the world, he says, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared me. In burnt offering and sacrifice for sin thou hast no pleasure. Then said I, lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O Elohim. Above, when he said, sacrifice and burnt offering and offering for sin, thou wouldest not, neither had pleasure therein, which are offered by the Levitical law. Back to Leviticus chapter 5, back to Leviticus chapter 7. These sacrifices were ordered under the. He had no pleasure in them. Though he ordered them, he had no pleasure in them. Only thing he gave you was a remembrance of your sin. For by the works of the law, or by the sacrifice of the law, the knowledge of sin. There was a remembrance of sin year by year when you did the sacrifice. Clear enough yet? Let's keep blowing the clouds away. And above, when he said sacrifice, this is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 8. And above, when he said sacrifice and offering and burnt offering and offering for sin, thou wouldest not, neither had pleasure therein, which are offered by the Levitical law. Then said I, lo, I come to do thy will, O Ohio. He taketh away the first sacrifice taken away, that he may establish the second. He took away the first sacrifice. Most High had no pleasure in it anyway. That's what was taken away. That's what was taken away. The sacrifice for sin. Since the Most High had no pleasure in it, it didn't take your sins away anyway. Didn't make you perfect, didn't take your sins away. He took it away, that he may establish the second. I'll read it again. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 9. Then said he, lo, I come to do thy will, O High. He taketh away the first what? The first sacrifice, that he might establish the second. By the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Yeshua, of Yahayasha, Messiah, once for all. Oh, praises. We are what? We're sanctified through the offering of the body of Yahayasha, Messiah, once and for all. And every priest standing daily, ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices, bulls, goats, which can never take away sins. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down at the right hand of Ahia. Wow. He offered how many sacrifices for sin? One. For how long? Forever. He is the one sacrifice for sin forever. He took away the first law concerning sacrifices. Couldn't justify you anyway, but the justification is found in him. Oh, praises. Now Romans chapter 3 makes sense. Now Romans chapter 4 makes sense. Now Galatians chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4 makes sense. It all makes sense now. That's what's superior about our faith. Thank you, Most High, for this. This is what's superior about our faith. The Hebraic faith. This is what's superior about it. This is where all other faiths that hold up Bibles fall short. They can't open the book and make sense. They don't have the spirit. They won't obey the Most High. They won't keep His word. I'll read it again. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever. This is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 12. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, sat down at the right hand of Ahai. From henceforth expecting, he's still there, expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified or set apart with Yahweh. Wherefore the Ruach HaKodesh also is a witness to us, for after that he has said before, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith Ahai. I will put my Torah law into their hearts, and in their minds I will write them, and their sins and iniquities I will remember no more. Close the book. You don't need a recap because I just did it. All this was done in line with the covenant. All this was done so you could be set free, child of Jacob. All this was done for you by Messiah. All praise to the Most High, Ahia, and to his son, Yahayasha, Messiah, Yadahaya.